Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. Children of all ages, welcome to Sports Talk with Austin, your daily dose of sports with Austin. Today we are going to be talking with a Michigan fan, John Diadamo, about the 2023 season preview of the Michigan Wolverines. Without further ado, the Michigan man himself, John Diadamo. How you doing today, John?
Hey Austin, go blue! I'm gonna say to everybody, doing great. I just shot our Michigan Wolverines live show, which
Mhm.
we do every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We had Dennis Fithian on today from the Maize and Blue Review, so we got to talk about some of the fall camp storylines we've been hearing, and I'm excited to talk with you on your new YouTube channel. Congratulations!
Thank you very much. I thought, why not dip into something creative? I love college football. I love all things sports. And I like YouTube. So why not give it a try? What's the worst
No
that can
doubt.
happen?
There you go.
So I want to start this off by asking you, as a Michigan fan, John. So what was the expectations for y'all going into the 2022 season last year to your expectations now? Because me personally, heading into 2022 for Michigan, my personal expectation for you guys were just, if y'all can win the Big Ten again, beat Ohio State again, that's a successful season. Now coming into 2023, everybody's putting the pressure. Can they win it all? Can they three-peat? Can they beat Ohio State again? All those expectations and pressures. But I want to hear what you have to think on that, John.
So we have to put all of these things into context, and we got to go back to 2020. So in 2020, Jim Harbaugh, obviously we had some problems with the program, culture problems. Don Brown was not cutting it at DC. He should have been fired years prior. And Michigan won 2 games, right? Almost lost to Rutgers, which would have been completely embarrassing. But Cade McNamara saved us from that. Jim Harbaugh had to take a 50% pay cut, and he decided, I'm going to overhaul this team. I'm going to overhaul the culture. I'm going to bring in I'm going to call my brother. I'm going to bring in Mike McDonald, from the Ravens to be the defensive coordinator. And I'm going to change our offensive playbook to what worked in Stanford, back in
Mm-hmm.
2009, 2010, the Stanford offensive playbook. And so, in 2021, I think Michigan overshot expectations a lot. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
anybody, a living soul in the world, I don't think if you were the biggest Michigan homer, you were predicting 2021 to be a season where Michigan beat
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State and made the playoffs. I don't think anybody thought that. I certainly didn't. I thought Michigan was going to win 8, 9 games. Um, I thought they would improve. They would win against the Cupcakes and they would beat most okay teams, but that they would lose against teams like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan
Mm-hmm.
State, and Michigan overcame expectations. But there was this theme going into 2022 that it was a fluke. That the Ohio State game, it was cold, it was snowy, people had the flu. Remember all these excuses that people were throwing out at why Michigan beat Ohio State in
Well,
2021?
well, to be fair, John, they did that with Northwestern too last year. Oh, it was snowy. It was
Right.
raining. That's why we only put up 21 points against them. So
Right.
you're telling me Michigan, when they play in the snow and stuff, and they only score 21 points against certain teams, that do they get to use that excuse too? I mean, not trying to
Except we
sound
don't.
any favoritism.
We
No,
don't usually score only 21 against teams in the snow or the rain. I mean, 2019 Notre Dame put up 45 on them, so that was in the rain. So I mean, listen. So going into 2022, all the Ohio State Buckeyes said that it was a fluke. That just wait until the Wolverines get into Columbus. because it's going to be a completely different game. We're more physical this year. We beat Notre Dame. You heard all of these things, all of this noise, and we had at the Voice of College Football, we had the Buckeyes in chat saying that they were going to pummel us in 2022, that Ryan Day was going to hang 100, all of these things. And then Michigan goes into Columbus after starting 11-0, just like the Buckeyes. It was a top 5 matchup. Everybody's saying that Harbaugh can't win the big game. I don't know how much larger a game you can get than 17 million viewers and a top 5 matchup. Michigan goes into Columbus and beats Ohio State more than they did the year before. They go in and beat them in the air and on the ground. So I think Ohio State had prepared for Michigan 2021. So they were ready to stop the run, just because, if you remember, Hassan Haskins ran for 5 touchdowns in that game. They were having a lot of trouble. So Knowles built that defense and that philosophy to stop Michigan 2021. But the problem is Michigan 2022 had a far better quarterback, JJ McCarthy, who actually knows how to throw the deep ball. And so literally Gus Johnson said it. They said the kid couldn't throw the deep ball. And what happened? 69-yarder to Cornelius Johnson, 75-yarder to Cornelius Johnson. And then that opens up the run for Donovan Edwards to do what he does and score multiple touchdowns. So I think what the expectation for the 2022 season for me, I had Michigan at 11-1. And I thought, for a long time, I thought they'd lose in Columbus by 3 points. I thought they were going to lose by 3 points. I thought Ohio State was they were going to be pissed off. They were going to just do just enough to win. And I changed my prediction at the last minute. I said, I think it was the day or two before on Mark Rogers' call-in show, I said, I just see Michigan doing it again. I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling. I think they're going to do it again. And I changed my prediction, and Michigan won the game. And so, they again overshot my expectations, because I didn't think Michigan was going to win the Big Ten again. I thought, 10, 11 games, and New Year's Six Bowl, maybe a Rose Bowl. So the fact that Michigan went back to the playoff again, I don't care. Yeah, TCU that sucked. I didn't like losing TCU. It's not like Michigan got trucked by TCU. Michigan lost by 6 points to an extremely underrated and very good TCU team.
I will say, in that game, though, John, that there was a lot of calls that could have gone either way. Obviously, the biggest one, and I believe you and a couple other your Michigan fans have pointed out, the Roman Wilson. Was he down? Was he not? That was a shift turner. Yes, I believe y'all scored the touchdown on that. I do believe. Or no, did you score the field goal on that, if I remember correct?
So in that particular one, the call that got overturned, so that was one where I think there was photographic evidence that he was definitely in for a touchdown. And if you go on Twitter, if you go around, you can see the photographic evidence that proves that he was in. But then the next play, there was a fumble, actually. So
yes, that's right.
They tried to ram it in with, I believe it was Khalil Mullings, and it was a fumble at the half-yard line, which not great, obviously. Calling a Philly special. What was that? Like, that's not Michigan's identity, calling a Philly special. And we had never done it the whole year. And so I don't understand what that play was. Matt Weiss is no longer with the team. He got busted for computer access crimes, whatever that means. So we won't be seeing that again, I don't think. I think Sharon Moore, being the offensive play caller and having that singular vision, will be very good for us. So what is my expectation for 2023? It's natty or bust, baby. I mean, we're going for it all this year.
Now, the thing with that is, And I
Yeah.
would like to say there's been this talk going around that Michigan's got the beat Georgia drill, which I think you've talked about on multiple times on multiple Mark Rogers shows.
Uh-huh.
How you are focused on getting back to Georgia from what happened in 21. They're right now they're the standard. So if
Yep.
Michigan gets back and let's say they play someone like a USC and beat them, then Georgia's the only thing that stands in their way. And it's one of those things if they can beat the standard, I mean it's a job well done. You accomplish two things in once. You
And
beat
I
Georgia
want to
and you won the Natty. Go
true.
ahead.
And I just want to remind everybody, the Buckeyes fans that trash the beat Georgia drill and they're like, oh, ho ho, beat TCU first. Ho, ho, ho. Let me
Yeah.
remind everybody that Urban Meyer had something at Ohio State called the Alabama Standard, and they were trying to be as good as Alabama in the various facets of their team. They had a beat Clemson drill. It wasn't called that, but they had a beat Clemson drill
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted to beat Clemson in the playoffs. So, like this isn't unique to Michigan. What is unique to Michigan is the fact that we didn't really have postseason preparation during the season before, and what the beat Georgia drill really is, it's not just beating Georgia, although they're probably going to be the final opponent or the semifinal opponent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to play them. But it's also beat Alabama, beat USC, whoever else Michigan has to face in the postseason. I believe it's a general postseason preparation drill, but that isn't as sexy as beat Georgia. So I think that's why
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh picked it. Um, so I think it's good that Michigan is preparing a little bit for the postseason because guess what? That's what Ohio State does. That's what Georgia does. That's what Alabama does. They prepare for the postseason during the season. They also prepare for the season during, for the season as well, and they win a lot of football games. Michigan will still have a beat Ohio drill. Michigan's still going to have a beat Penn State drill and beat Michigan State drill. Those
Mm-hmm.
are still going to be part of the overall what we do. But I just think it's really funny that Ohio State, which had a beat Alabama and beat Clemson, is going to throw stones about a beat Georgia because they did the
Yeah,
same. They did similar things.
that's pretty funny considering, like you said, they've done that too. But I guess since they think you're a little brother, it's okay to pick on you. But when you pick on them back, it's not
Yeah,
okay.
they're
Well,
obsessed. If you watch a
yes.
Mark Rogers show, Voice of College Football, which I strongly recommend everybody check it out because we do content every day, insight and analysis, the best on the internet. And you have people in there, Ohio State fans, and all they can do is rag on Michigan. They're so obsessed with Michigan, and it's like it's because we're in their head. We beat them head to head the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 years, and they can't handle it. They can't handle it at all. And I think we're headed for a three-peat. So there you go.
Yeah. And real quick to the comments, Jackson Johnson says, "What's up, everybody? What's up?
What's
What's
up,
up,
Jackson?
Jackson? Thank you for being here." And he also comments says, "I love the beat Georgia drill." I think
I do too.
I think we all do because it's kind of a funny
No,
thing
we don't all. No,
that
we don't all. I guess I get beat
oh,
up for it every week.
well, and the thing about this is real quick is that you got to be careful with it too because you don't want to poke the hornet's nest. Georgia's already a powerhouse. If you just
Yeah.
give them more big board material, oh boy, and y'all happen to meet them again, it could get ugly again. It might be worse than 2021. It might. I don't think it will, but it could be because Kirby Smart's been known in the past when you give him billboard material, Georgia goes on insane runs. Let, let, let's just hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope it's a
I'm pretty
competitive game.
I'm pretty sure that Harbaugh picked Georgia to be number one in the coaches poll. So I don't really think I think that the beat Georgia is a show of respect, not a show of anything else. It's saying we acknowledge you as the number one. We acknowledge that you're probably going to be the final opponent. I think that's not bulletin board material as much as it's
Respect.
that we
You
know that you're
acknowledge.
extremely good. You know,
You acknowledge that, hey, if we want our goal, we got to beat you because you're the standard. Because
right?
for the longest time, it was Alabama. Everyone was like, okay, beat Bama, because they're the standard. We know we're going to have to play them. Now, Georgia's kind of becoming in that role of they're the standard now, that they're taking Bama's spot. They're becoming a dynasty. And people are now saying Georgia's going to be our final opponent we got to get to beat to get to where we want to go. Like Michigan, like like you said, this year is natty or bust in your opinion, which I completely agree because I mean winning a row. If y'all go to New Year's Six and win it, it's still a great season in my book coming from a Louisville fan, but for Michigan fans, that's a disappointment, possibly. I don't know if it'd be disappointment possibly to you specifically, John, but a lot of Michigan fans have gotten to the point where they're starting to like these playoffs and beating Ohio State's. It's just interesting because for the longest time, y'all could not beat Ohio State. You could not beat Michigan State consistently.
Right.
And a lot of people were just like, can Harbaugh do it? And now he's doing it consistently.
Yep.
The next topic I want to discuss, John, is can you all three-peat in the Big Ten? And how I want to talk about the key games in your schedule on your road to three-peating in the Big Ten possibly. So, but before we get to that, I want to ask you, John, do you see a three-peat in Michigan's future?
Yes, I do. I mean, if you look at the landscape, Michigan is one of the only teams in the Big Ten returning their quarterback. Only Maryland, and then there are some that have a transfer quarterback that have played, but it's there aren't that many Big Ten teams that have a returning starting quarterback. So you factor that in, along with the fact that Penn State, I'm not sold on them at all. I have them going 9-3. I think Penn State is a bit of a media darling. I think that they get that way every year because James Franklin is very good at making his team look good in the media. And I think that their quarterback is a 5-star rated quarterback, but from what I've seen, he's not that great and he's very sporadic. And we haven't seen enough film. What I've also seen is that the running backs get stuffed against really good defenses. So their amazing running core, well, they didn't do so hot against Michigan. And so they can get stuffed against a really good defense. Their defense is okay, but again, Penn State's defense allowed 417 rushing yards from Michigan. So I think Penn State's going to lose the big games again. Ohio State, I have going 11-1. I think they're gonna beat Notre Dame and they're gonna lose to Michigan. But I wouldn't be completely shocked if they lose to Notre Dame as well. But I think they'll probably go 11-1 again and lose to Michigan, and that of course means that Michigan would be the Big Ten winner.
There's a lot of interesting teams out there. And the first one up on the docket on the key game that I think is going to be important for your schedule is at Minnesota. Week 6 at Minnesota. I know that might come as a surprise to a lot of people because there's a lot of people not high on PJ Fleck. But may I remind you, Minnesota is a team I think can give Michigan a really good game. And especially since it's at Minnesota, I would not be surprised, John, if this is like a touchdown win for Michigan. What are your thoughts?
Well, not only would I not be surprised at that, I played it out with my NCAA football series. So anybody can go back and watch that game on Michigan football at the Voice of College Football. It was a 1-score game. And, while they lose key talent all over their team, they will have Sean Tyler, who has put up obviously over 1,000 rushing yards in each of his seasons with the Broncos, with Western Michigan. So that he's going to be an impact player there. Daniel Jackson could be a impact player. So they have some really good talent, that I would, you can't sleep on them. So I agree that that could be a trap game. Now, I think Michigan has the talent
Hmm.
where I think they're going to be able to win trap games like that, where maybe a 2018 Michigan team wouldn't have been able to. I just think that JJ, he's so dynamic and so versatile with his ability to run the ball, throw the deep ball, throw the short ball. I mean, his leadership is ridiculous. Two of the, I would argue, two of the best running backs in the country, and I think the top two running backs in the Big Ten. Jackson Johnson said in chat, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are the best running back duo. I agree with that, Jackson. They're incredible, and combine that with what we're hearing in fall camp, which we just did a whole show on fall camp, and what we're hearing is that Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson, and Tyler Morris are gelling very well with JJ McCarthy. And we know that Colston Loveland as a tight end is extremely good. AJ Barner, the transfer, is extremely good. The O line might be, and I know this sounds crazy, but this might be Michigan's best O line. And that's coming from a squad that just won the last two Joe Moore awards. So I think with all of those things said, Minnesota could be a scary game for 2 or 3 quarters, and Michigan pulls ahead in the end.
Now, the thing on this game, for me personally, is what worries me is Minnesota's run defense.
Yeah.
Because we've seen with Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, as Jackson and you have both mentioned, that they're the two best running backs in arguably not only the Big Ten, but in all of college football. You can make that argument. And can Minnesota, I won't say stop them because it's going to be hard to stop both, but can you contain one or the other and do what Ohio State thought would work and make JJ throw more? But we've also learned, too, that is JJ can also beat you through the air if he wants to. Because Ohio State said, oh, we're going to stack the box. JJ, we want you to beat us. And he throws those 3 long bomb touchdowns, and it's like, well, that didn't work either. It's just one of those things that's like, it's really hard to stop Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan runs all over them.
Yeah, it's tough. Cody Lindenberg, it might be a challenge. Linebacker who had 71 tackles last year. Devin Eastern could be a problem. And you might have some talent there. But if Michigan was able to put 417 rushing yards on Penn State's run defense, which Urban Meyer said before the game, Penn State has one of the best rushing defenses, and they're going to stop Michigan in the run. And then Michigan goes and does 417 on them. And those same players are back. I just think that Minnesota is not going to be able to contain it for the whole game.
Now, on to the next key game. I think we all know where this one's going. Week 8 at Michigan State. I mean, other than the fact of what happened last year, which we don't have to get into any of that, but that was just a mess in itself. This is just a clean fashion rivalry. They don't like each other. They both want to beat each other. I could see this game being a low-scoring game, like a 17-10 possibly game, because it is a rivalry game and it's at Michigan State. What do you think, John?
Yeah, this game would scare me a lot more if they hadn't lost their best players. Keon Coleman especially is scary, and he's gone. Noah Kim, you could argue, might be a little bit better than Peyton Thorne, but it's not really. I mean, it's not really much of a high bar. Their secondary isn't great. I would say that maybe somebody like somebody like Jordan Hall could cause a problem in the linebacker position. But honestly, I think that this, and I in my simulation we went 41-7 at East Lansing, and I think that's going to
Hmm.
be about what it is because Michigan is going to legally get revenge on what happened last year. They are not happy. Blake Corum's going to play in that game, even though he really doesn't have to. Um, and so Michigan State is in a sorry position this year. They are. I have them going 4-8. I don't think they're going to be very good. Now, if they had kept those players, maybe I would have said 6-6 or 7-5, maybe. But with the exodus of players that they've dealt with, I think Michigan's going to
Yeah.
impose their will on Michigan State in East Lansing.
Yeah. I I don't know. I think it'll be 41-7 because it is a rivalry game, but it is very interesting. I get where you're coming from. Just like with me with Kentucky, I hope we blow them out this year. But I honestly think this game's going to come down to once again whether or not you can hold Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. That's going to be the key for all these
Oh,
games.
mm-hmm.
Yes, because they are the difference maker. Because let's be honest, if JJ McCarthy doesn't have to throw, he's not going to. Harbaugh's not going to make him throw. Because if Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum can just run up and down the field, there's no need to pass. But the one thing I will say that's going to be key for this game is you a lot of times see in rivalry games is how much when they get to the red zone, how much is that defense going to clamp down on both sides? Especially for Michigan State, knowing that Michigan when they get in the red zone, that they normally punch it in 90% of the time. Are they going to hold them to field goals? Because you do that, you have a chance to win this game. Because hold Michigan to field goals is like a big victory. But
Yeah.
the other thing is you can't turn over the ball either. That's a big no-no against Michigan. And
I think you're
mhm,
thinking of D'Antonio's Michigan State, not what Mel Tucker has right now. Because I think D'Antonio's Michigan State could hold Michigan to some field goals. I don't think this Michigan State can. I think this Michigan is going to run through Michigan State like a hot knife through butter, and
mhm,
Michigan State will put up a touchdown, maybe 10 points. And sure, maybe Michigan does make one field goal, but I think that the emotion running in that game. Michigan is going to use every minute that they're on the field from quarter one to end of quarter four legally
mhm.
to impose their will on Michigan State.
Make a statement. I mean that's a good point, John. I mean Michigan State they've lost a lot since 2021. I mean, and I can honestly see in a world where Michigan could go up 21-0 within the first quarter and it's all but over from there, and then y'all just add icing to the cake. But it will be interesting for sure. Jackson Johnson comments: the last time Michigan beat Michigan State at East Lansing was 2018. That's a good point. That's a good point to bring up. Michigan has struggled in East Lansing, but they also said that about Ohio State too, and look what happened. So that doesn't mean it can't happen here either.
Yeah, I mean, look, East Lansing is not the easiest place to play at. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
going to say that it is, but in terms of what is going to, I think this game is very unique in kind of
Mm-hmm.
where it stands on stuff, like where it compare after what happened in the tunnel. I think it's a very unique game, and I think that Blake Corum is going to want to run it up and down the field,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he'll be allowed to because I think they're going to call a lot of runs, but they'll also they're going to open the playbook up a little, just because they want
Mm-hmm.
to probably beat them by a lot. So I think you're going to see some plays that normally you wouldn't show a 4-8 team, because I think Michigan in this, you don't really want to face an angry Michigan. You just don't. You want
Mm-mm.
Michigan when they're a little tired, a little complacent. Like you want Michigan like when Illinois faced Michigan in this past year, and I was at that game.
Mhm.
with my big coat, winter coat on, and and with hot cocoa, and we were all
Mhm.
there. It was literally a blizzard about to fall in Ann Arbor that day, and I think Michigan was caught a little bit looking ahead.
Mhm.
I think their game plan was get out with a win, even if it's a close win, just get out with a win.
Mhm.
And that Illinois team is not a team you can take lightly. Like, they were sneaky good. So yeah, that was catching Michigan when they were sleeping, basically. This game, Michigan's going to be playing all
Wide awake.
cylinders, wide awake.
Now, this next game on the schedule, the key games in the schedule is arguably the the biggest game in the Big Ten, arguably next to Ohio State,
Mhm.
Michigan, at Penn State in Happy Valley. Well, what are your thoughts on this game, John? How do you see this game going?
You know, I will say that in this game, I have Penn State with 3 losses. I think they're going to lose to Michigan. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State, and I think they're going to lose. Ready for this one? I think they're
Go
going to
for it.
lose to Iowa.
Okay, that's not as far fetched as I thought you were going to go. Iowa's got
And
a really solid defense.
Iowa's coming to Beaver, though. Iowa's going to be playing Penn State at Beaver Stadium.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now that kind of seems
So
a little more out there.
yeah, so I think they're gonna I have Penn State at 9-3. Now you've got to
Mm-hmm.
watch some of their players because Olu Fashanu is a really good tackle. Their running backs, while Michigan has been able to mostly contain them, Singleton and Katron Allen, they are very talented, and you have to watch that. I think what's going to be Penn State's undoing is James Franklin's in-game decisions. He has never been the best in-game coach. The one big game, I guess, unless you count the Rose Bowl against a depleted Iowa or Utah against a depleted
Yeah.
Utah, but he basically lucked into his big win against Ohio State in 2016. So his in-game decisions are not great, and so I think this game is going to be one where Michigan, it'll be closer. I don't think this one's going to be 41-7 by any stretch. I think it'll be a much closer game, 7 points, maybe 10 points. And you might, Drew Aller's good with the long balls against weaker
Yeah.
opponents.
I was about ready to bring up in the comments. Jackson says Drew Aller is pretty good with the long balls. That he is. I've seen him throw some of them in spring camps. They look nice.
And those long balls are going to get picked off by a guy named Will Johnson. So
yes, he's a stud.
He's ridiculous, and I think Drew Eller has an arm, but I think he can beat like Indiana level talent. I think he can even beat Wisconsin level talent. But do I think he can beat Will Johnson and the secondary that we have? Oh no. He's gonna get picked off like 3 times or 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing about this game is obviously Harbaugh's past of can he win the big ones? Can he not? Can he do it? James Franklin, a lot of people, including some Penn State fans, are starting to get impatient. Like, you've only beaten Ohio State once in the last however many years. It's been a while since you beat Michigan. And you're consistently going 10-2, and they're kind of like, can we at least go 11-1 once? Maybe win the Big Ten again? Like they're starting to get impatient, like you guys were with Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Except Michigan was actually thinking about kicking him out the door. They were kicking him out long before any of that ever happened. Like, because
and I was one of the first. And listen, I went on Mark Rogers' And I, back when he was doing phone calls instead of the
Mm-hmm.
StreamYard, and I went back and I called and I said, I think we might need to look at firing Harbaugh. And I said that
Mm-hmm.
when we lost to Michigan State in 2021, even I said, this is unacceptable to continue losing to Michigan State, and I think you need to look at alternative options. Now they proved me wrong later, but yeah, I was one of the people saying maybe it's time for a change. He proved me wrong. He proved many people wrong who were saying the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
with respect to Penn State, James Franklin should give half his paycheck. I'm about to address this, Jackson. James Franklin needs to give half of his paycheck to a guy named Saquon Barkley and
Yes.
and Joe Moorhead,
Mm-hmm.
because they're the reasons that James Franklin won a Big Ten title in 2016. The
Mm-hmm.
talent on that team was ridiculous. And by the way, Michigan still whooped them that year. But just a side note there, Michigan whooped them in 2016. But yeah, Joe Moorhead is one of the best play callers I've seen in the Big Ten. And Saquon Barkley, obviously, he's playing on Sundays now. So they had a really good team. And so that I think that's a factor. And yeah, he won a Big Ten. He had 2 losses. Congratulations, you got your Big Ten trophy in a really weird year for the Big Ten. But I think he owes his whole career basically to a fluke play, and it got them the win. And yes, he did well at Vandy. I'll give him that. 9-3 at Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a somewhat weaker division than it is now. Um, I'll give him that. Not many coaches can win games at Vandy, but I think he's a bit of a fraud, and I think he's been I think
Mm-hmm.
in any big game you've seen that, and
Mm-hmm.
and Penn State's going to go 9-3. That's my prediction.
Now, before we move on to the next game, which the next one will be pretty
Oh
interesting
yeah,
because
oh yeah.
because well, we got one more stop before we get there, Johnny. I have one more game on the schedule that I think that in just a second. But the last thing on Penn State I will say
Uh huh.
is James Franklin. I'm not a Penn State fan, but I'm willing to give him some patience. But at some point, everyone's patience runs out
Yeah.
because, like with Jim Harbaugh, I was sitting back and watching, and I'm like, come on, dude. Like, I want to see you do good. I mean, you did great in the NFL. You took the Niners to the Super Bowl. You had all these great teams that took them to multiple NFC title games. Like,
Yeah.
can you get it done in college, please? That way people don't call you, like, because he's a great head coach. He can get the most out of his talent. But for the longest time, like we've said, constantly he just couldn't win the big one. And then finally he beats Michigan State, and then he beats Ohio State the same year. What a coincidence. And it's just like, it's just one of those things. It's like, with James Franklin, it's like patience is running out, even from non-Nindy Lions fans. Nindy Lions fans are probably ready to throw him out the door already. But
From what I've heard from Nittany Lions fans, they're getting sick of it. They're getting sick of the losses in big games.
mm-hmm.
Well, looks like we've lost Austin here. Let's see what we got in the comments. As I always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, you do, Jackson. You really do. You enjoy saying that. I think it's great. Yeah, James Franklin. He's a coach that I think is overrated. I think he's a coach that, with the exception of, again, that fluke game in 2016 and a Rose Bowl against a depleted Utah team, he just hasn't impressed. And you could say the same about Harbaugh, but he did. Harbaugh won obviously an Orange Bowl at Stanford
Sorry
with
about that.
Andrew Luck. Oh, hey, yeah, I was just talking about Harbaugh and being the fact that people are saying about Franklin what they were about Harbaugh, but Harbaugh did win an Orange Bowl with Stanford with Andrew Luck. Harbaugh went to a Super Bowl in the NFL, and he's turned around every program he's been at. So, I think it's a bit of an apples to oranges.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So we're ready to get to it. Are we going to talk Ohio State? Is that coming up next?
Next on the list is Week 12 at Maryland.
Okay. Oh, we've lost you again. Uh-oh. All right. Cool. So it looks like we're live. So let's talk Maryland. So Maryland is a team that obviously has a very good quarterback, Tolia, baby Tua, as we say. And he's got talent around him. Hey, Austin.
There we go. Week 12 at Maryland. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. So Maryland, obviously, as I mentioned Maryland earlier, as the other school returning their quarterback, Talia, great player. They lost some talent to the NFL, but they're returning some talent as well, and I think they're going to be a threat. I have them going 9-3 as well. And I think that bringing in Josh Gaddis was kind of a questionable move. I don't know why they did that. Josh Gaddis, as we know, was feuding with Loxley about who was calling the plays at Alabama. Jackson Johnson in the chat can chime in on who he thinks was calling the plays at Alabama. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't Josh Gaddis. And so, they're feuding. And I just think it's really interesting that team is it's going to have some drama in it for sure. But I still think with the talent that they have, they could go 9-3. So that's kind of my take on Maryland. I just wonder if Michigan Maryland will be similar to last year's matchup. Yeah, I mean, could be. I think Michigan's going to do pretty well in that game, though. I think Michigan's going to win by like 2 touchdowns at least against Maryland. But Maryland's going to score a lot of points, but Michigan's just going to score more. That's kind of my thought process there. All right. Looks like Austin is trying to rejoin us here.
No.
Austin, you back?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going.
Yeah, the internet's really rough, man. Yeah, so I just went over Maryland and kind of went through my take on Maryland and Talia, who I think is going to be, he's one of the other key returning quarterbacks for Maryland. So I think that's going to be a challenge. He's really good player, but they've lost some talent to the NFL. I think Maryland will score a lot of points, but Michigan's going to score more and probably win by 2 touchdowns roughly. Wow, Jackson, you're saying the feud between Gaddis and Loxley will lead to Maryland going 6-6? That would be a real disappointing season for Maryland if that were the case. I think 9 and I'm kind of high on them just because of their talent and Talia. So I'm going 9-3. But Josh Gaddis is the quarterbacks coach. That can't be a good thing. And he's not going to be calling Loxley's still, it's still Loxley's offense, and we all know it. And Gaddis is going to have to eat a big old scoop of humble pie, slice of humble pie, given the fact that he was all like, "I called the plays," and Loxley is like, "No, I called the plays." And it's this whole thing. So I don't know. Okay, all right, that's fair. Okay, looks like Austin's trying to join us again here. Austin?
Okay, there we are.
Yeah, your internet's really cutting in and out there, man.
Are you still there, John?
I am still here. So I just went over Maryland. So why don't we hop over to Ohio State?